Hi, everyone. My name is Angela H. Brown, and I am the Executive Director for Craft Lake City. And I'd like to just welcome you all today to our Lunch and Learn, our virtual discussion with Equality Utah. We're so excited. We've got a couple guests here, and we're going to go ahead and talk about our show that we've had on exhibition for the past 2 months, talking about all the incredible work that Equality Utah does. But before we get into that, just a few housekeeping notes. Please mute your microphone when you're not talking. Please keep your mic muted so that all attendees can enjoy the presentation. If you'd like to have live captions, you can go ahead and click the live transcripts button at the bottom of your screen. And then also, please give us your feedback. We will be posting a link to a survey, and we'd love to just hear about how we did today and how we can improve the conversation for next time. And I'd like to just tell you a little bit about Craft Lake City. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to educate, promote, and inspire local artisans while elevating the creative culture of the Utah arts community through science, technology, and art. And one of the ways that we execute that mission is by hosting a large-scale DIY festival that's coming up. Actually, our 15th annual is coming up on August 11th, 12th, and 13th. Down at the Utah State Fair Park. We also produce a holiday market up in Ogden at the historic Union Station. So keep an eye out for our 5th annual holiday market the first weekend of December. We also host year-round DIY workshops where we teach the community to become makers and creators and artisans themselves. And of course, you can find out more information about that on our website and craftlakecity.com. But today we're here to talk about some of our curation projects that we do. Downtown in Salt Lake City, Utah on Broadway, there are these large metal frames that we refer to as placards. These are 4x8 frames that are on the city streets. And this is actually an opportunity for us to provide messages with incredible nonprofit organizations like Equality Utah, who's here today through our Local Voices partnership. And then we also curate them and produce art exhibitions ourselves through our Celebration at the Hand program. So today we're here to talk about our latest partnership with Equality Utah, and we've got Troy Williams, the executive director, and Mindy Young, the managing director. So welcome you both. If you don't mind talking a little bit about yourselves and introducing yourselves, I would love that. We could start with you, Troy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angela. It's great to be back with you and to be talking about this exhibit that we've had. So yeah, Equality Utah, we are the state's LGBTQ political advocacy organization. So we work on Capitol Hill to ensure that the laws in our state include and protect our community. But we also have a 501c3 that actually does like sort of public education around LGBTQ issues, and which is what this is kind of part of. And I believe, Angela, is this our 5th or our 6th collaboration together?
Yes, it is. It is our 5th or our 6th collaboration. It's been so incredible that we've been able to work together to show your work on the city streets for so many years.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So happy to be here. I've been with this organization for going on 9 years now, and before that I spent 10 years at KRCL Radio as the producer of Radioactive. So it's great to be with you all.
Thank you, Troy. And Mindy, let's go ahead and hear about you.
So grateful to be here this morning, and really I just love this collaboration, and I look forward to it every year. And we're storytellers, and so we love the opportunity to tell the story through this art that gets. I took my kids and we had to walk and take pictures by every single plakat because everyone feels like such a beautiful art piece. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to look forward to it every year. I've been with Equality Utah for 8 years now. I started because I'm an old theater girl. So I started back years ago producing Allies, and then came on full time. And it's such an honor to be here. And it's such an honor to do this work in this state. What we do is hard and fulfilling in very rich and soulful ways. So grateful to be here today.
Thank you so much, Mindy and Troy. Well, and I'm really excited for us to kind of dive into some of those conversations about the work that you do and how you do the hard work for all of us here that live within the state. So thank you so much for that. This is one of the exhibition pieces that we've got, and it features an incredible comedian, Eddie Izzard, that came to your Allies Gala last year, which of course we'll talk about the Allies Gala in a little bit. But I think that the quote on this is just so incredible Troy, do you mind reading the quote and kind of why it is kind of important to Equality Utah? And I kind of see it almost as a symbolism for some of the ethos behind the work that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and many of you are probably familiar with Eddie Izzard's vast work. She is a transgender comedian and actor, and is just a phenomenal force in the world. And we have seen the transgender community really be targeted by a lot of aggressive legislation around the country. And so we thought we wanted to bring the most high profile transgender person in the world that we could find and bring her to take the stage at the Eccles Theater last August at our annual Allies Gala. And I love the way that Eddie kind of engages with the world. And she's very thought-provoking. She's very funny, and has just beautiful insights into how we engage with each other. And so I was excited to bring her. And as she was speaking, and her speech is available at the Equality Utah on our YouTube channel, her entire speech. But she gave us a challenge at the end as she was talking about some of the challenges that we're facing in the world today. A lot of it around the political polarization that we have right now, and the fears that people have around the transgender community, et cetera. And she issued a challenge to us to be, she said, we have to be brave and curious and not fearful and suspicious. And that really resonated with me as we've been involved in all of these culture war issues and that have been raging across the country. How do we be less fearful as a society? How do we be less suspicious and to be more curious about those with whom we don't understand? And that was something that I really resonated with as she was speaking, and I really internalized it and recommitted to that ethos. I mean, our organization has kind of always been that way, but it was a way for us to kind of really kind of reconnect. And so I wanted to put this on one of the placats and to really help inspire all of us to be less suspicious of everybody. Because as we look at our landscape right now in the country, everything seems to be designed to keep us apart and to have us in a perpetual state of outrage. It's our social media algorithms that reward conflict. It's our partisan cable news that churns outrage, that gets us so furious at the other side. You spend 10 minutes on Twitter scrolling, and you would think that everybody in the world just are horrible and we all hate each other. Well, if we continue down this path of having so much anger and outrage, and by the way, these entities profit off of our outrage. They are conflict entrepreneurs. They make money when we're at each other's throats. But it's bad for democracy. It's bad for the cohesion of our society. So what's the vaccination for that? Well, I think it's curiosity, right? And it's the willingness to be brave and courageous, and to sit down and have conversations with people who we don't necessarily ideologically align with, and see if there is something that we can understand about the other and that we can learn from the other and actually find common ground. We got you on mute. Angela.
Thank you. I love what you're saying there, Troy, because when we can, kind of get back to that sort of learning mindset of being curious and out of the fear, that's when we can really try and connect with someone else. Could you talk a little bit about, how you as an organization are able to do that, Mindy, and how that kind of aligns with some of the work that Equality Utah does?
Well, and looking at this plakat right here, this is from the opening number of our Allies Gala, and we use about 100 local artists that come and basically donate their time, and we rehearse for about 6 weeks, and we really put on a show that is telling the story of how we are really all the same. And how do we come together and work together and respect each other for the greater good? And we call our Allies Gala allies because we can't do this work alone. Our community can't advance anything if we just are in our own silo and we don't reach out. And one of my favorite things that Troy taught me when I first started working here, he said, every person I meet, I consider them my future ally. And what if we all moved through the world where every person we met, I see you as my friend. I see you as my ally. I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to show up as your friend and your ally. And we might not agree. In fact, often we don't agree. But can I respect your humanity? And can I respect you as my future ally?
And this
I love.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Troy.
No, I was saying, if you want to talk about a little bit about Chandra and her amazingness, Mindy.
Oh my gosh. This is Chandra Whitaker. She's the lead singer of the local band Ginger and the Gents. And oh, she brought it, that opening number. And it was such a beautiful experience to work with local artists like her, because it's I think art, like Troy and I are both theater kids. And so we use our art to tell our stories to help bring people to us. And I think it's such an effective way to gain allies. And it was so awesome to see Chandra really sing it and really use her art to do the same thing. And all of these dancers that have all danced with different organizations coming together. It's really powerful. It's powerful for me. I get, this is my favorite part of the job, to stage this show. And I think it's also a unique way, just like Craft Lake City and the work that you do and these placats, our art can be the way we bring people together.
And for us, one of the things that was so critical when we were putting our gala together, and we called it Gorgeous Planet, and because we were contemplated a lot about these social divisions and thinking through how divided we seem and we appear to be as a country right now. On so many lines, we're fracturing, whether it's political or racial or gender, we're all fracturing, and we're having that connective tissue that has kept our country together is fraying in lots of ways. And so how do we connect to each other? How do we re-knit the social fabric back together? And so for us, it was, we kind of went back to, we had to sort of pull back from 2023 and actually go back billions of years ago. Our species has been evolving, but we all emerged from the big cosmic explosions that created our galaxy and that fused our planet together. And from the first creatures that crawled out of the primordial ooze and started reproducing and then evolving to who we are today, like Carl Sagan says, we're all made of star stuff. Right? We are all connected. We're all made of that same primordial matter that connects us all together. And can we not see that in each other? Can we not discover that this kind of star, this kind of cosmic power that resonates within each human being? And can that be enough to remind us of the value of each other? So that was kind of the kind of essence of what was kind of animating our work last year in this whole series. So it's very cosmic, lots of space, lots of planets.
Well, and what a beautiful metaphor to kind of theme this body of work, this outdoor installation around, using that we're all kind of by star stuff or stardust, that's all where we came from, really that we're all part of each other.
Yeah. And that's, if you flip back, there was that Joni Mitchell quote. And Mindy, you chose that. So you want to talk a little bit?
I found that song, we are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get our way back to the garden. And I was like, oh, I love this song. And then I found out that Joni Mitchell wrote it. And it just brought it home for me. And you think about that we are all human, that we are all made of the same stuff. And when we can realize that we are not so separate from each other, and honoring that humanity in each other and giving each other grace. We often talk about in this movement, it's not a movement if nobody moves. And we want to make sure that our hearts are open to learn and understand, because so many times when we're opposed to someone else, that's just fear. And when we're filled with fear, we get filled with defensiveness and judgment, and we want to rage at each other. So if we can relax into, wait, what I say matters. I want to hear what you say and what you think, and find out what's behind what you think. Help me understand. Tell me more. And when we get back to that, we really can value each other as humans.
Yeah, and that, I think, is an antidote to the fears that people have, for example, around the transgender community. We're having big battles across the country and even in our state over drag queens performing. We've had situations just this year where drag artists have performed here in Salt Lake City, and Proud Boys have showed up with guns and to protest outside. And that's kind of that is a fear response. Right. And again, becoming suspicious, becoming fearful, becoming angry. How do we counter that? Well, it has to be through curiosity and seeing our differences, seeing the different skin tones that we have, different cultural backgrounds, different faith, and the different ideologies that we have, not as something to fear, but as something to actually embrace and something to actually celebrate, and not to feel threatened that if one group of people have advancements, that somehow that diminishes me. So that's the challenge that we have as a culture right now, and that we have to meet.
Well, and this image from our exhibition, I wanted to talk about because this really just highlights the upcoming Allies Gala that's going to be in October. And for those that have not had the opportunity to attend, you've really produced an incredible event at the Eccles Center and downtown. And it's just so wonderful to see the caliber of talent on that beautiful stage. I mean, this is kind of really like the diamond of Main Street. And to see Equality Utah, bring in the LGBTQ plus community to really shine on that stage is wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about the gala and how that impacts your fundraising efforts and the work that you do?
Yeah, Mindy, take it away.
Yes, this is definitely our featured fundraiser, and we want every company in Utah, every organization in Utah, and every person in Utah to be there. We can fit 2,400 people in that theater, and we would love to stuff it full. The other thing is, it is an expensive ticket because it is our fundraiser, but we have lots of options. We have scholarship tickets available. All you have to do is email us and apply for the scholarship ticket. That's 100% free. Excuse me. We also have third tier tickets that are at a discounted rate. And then, and those are, again, just email us and we can help hook you up with those. Sometimes companies come and will donate tickets back to us. There are lots of ways that people can be involved. And of course, we have lots of volunteer opportunities. We want the community to be part of this and need the community to be part of this. If you're interested, you can email me, Mindy, MINDY, at equalityutah.org.
Yeah, and it is a optimistic celebration. Actually, my background is his last year's show as well. It's a very psychedelic kind of experience, but it's really wonderful to, like we said earlier, to showcase local Utah artists. We often have a celebrity like Eddie Izzard come. We've had Billy Porter in the past, Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, etc. But really, we want to celebrate and highlight our local drag artists, our local dancers, our local musicians, and give them a platform to share their art on stage, and then and really kind of set our gay agenda for the year, like the kind of issues that we're working on up on Capitol Hill. And also, we want to actually, what's important to us as Equality Utah is that people who are maybe not traditionally part of our community are invited and welcome to attend as well. So last year at this gala, it was great because Congressman John Curtis came, Congressman Blake Moore came. We had several lawmakers from the legislature, Republican lawmakers coming and attending. And I want them to feel as welcome as the most queer liberal, right? I want us all to be together. And I want it to be not a big deal for a conservative Republican to be at an event with an outrageously beautiful drag queen. And that not to be controversial, but that just to be cool. And for them not to be fearful of the drag queens, and for the drag queens not to be fearful of the Republicans, right? And that seems, I know that seems like, I don't know, airy fairy maybe, but it is what we go for, and it is the work that we want to do, because we really truly do want everyone to feel welcome. And we always have like a dress theme as well. So this year it was Cosmic Vogue. So people were showing up in different, they're everything from DIY to high cosmic couture was happening in the audience, and it was really fun. So this year we will be announcing next month our new gala, our new theme, and the artists that we're bringing in, and we're very excited about who we're bringing. So probably about in the middle of the month we'll announce what that is, and that will be like a foreshadow of next year's book series as well that we'll work with Craft Lake City on.
Woo, can't wait for that big announcement. Well, and Trey, you mentioned something that I wanted to kind of just talk about, and that is, why is it important to, bring conservative Republicans to like the Allies Gala, and because some people might kind of be thinking, well, no, like they should not be invited. Absolutely not. Why do you go kind of above and beyond to make sure that those individuals are invited and that they come?
Because we want to end the culture war. It's not good enough just to sit and talk to the choir and preach to the choir, right? We actually, want to actually reach beyond the fences of our own backyard and actually make connections with people and bring them in, because how on earth can we live together and coexist together in peace if we are always at war with each other? And if we're always fighting, and we always look at each other with suspicion, then we're never going to be able to see the potential for connection, the potential for friendship and allyship. And so to me, that is the heart of advocacy and activism. It's really easy to to get with your friends and to bitch about the world, but the real challenge is to sit across from someone who you have a different point of view with and actually find ways to engage. I'll share a brief story about how we, because for us, this isn't just theoretical for us. This is actually what we do. So last, I think it was 2 months ago, there was the Republican State Convention was hosted at UVU, and Ron DeSantis was the keynote speaker. He is no friend or ally to the LGBTQ community. And we thought to ourselves, this is where we need to be. And so we called the organizers, we got a booth, and we spent about 5 to 6 hours talking to Republican delegates about LGBTQ issues, listening to their concerns, hearing them, and then trying to see if there's a space for common ground. Beyond our differences, is there a thread to connect with? Even if they're wearing a red MAGA hat, is there some way for us to connect, to actually dispel or distill the essence of who we are, to make a genuine, real connection with somebody? And I gotta say, our staff was pretty courageous, and we had a really amazing experience with people. And there was so many people that were coming up to us, thanking us for being there, sharing stories about loved ones in their lives that were LGBTQ. I had one dad asking me for advice how to repair the relationship with his lesbian daughter, and having those kind of conversations. Had we not been there, and how do we allow other people who are certainly passing out literature about us and about our community, had we not been there to represent our community, that all they would have heard would be the voice of Ron DeSantis and these other groups. We needed to be there in that space. And so that is we in our staff, we kind of joke and we call it queer missionary work. But that is, to us, the essence. The most important thing that we do is having these conversations with people who are on the other side of our issues.
Well, and Trey, oh, go ahead, Mindy.
No, I was just going to add that if we really want to negotiate and really make sure that our laws include and protect our community, we have to be in the room. And just like you said, we didn't want them to set oh, this is who the LGBTQ community is. No, this is who we are. And when we show up and we are reasonable and we are human and we are articulate and having conversations, all of a sudden their minds kind of get blown like, whoa, I didn't know what I didn't know. And that whole theory that Troy really advocates for always, that nothing about us without us. And if we want to be in those rooms and if we want to be there where that happens, we have to show up and we have to be able to seek to understand and to open our hearts and to listen. And it was hard. It was, some of those conversations were hard. I teared up a few times, but honestly, one guy, when he came at me pretty intensely, and after about 30 minutes of conversation, it took a long time with him, but he said, I have been educated. I have been educated. And I said, do you think we should hug? And so then we hugged, and he walked by our booth about 3 more times and kept giving me a thumbs up. And I thought, he's probably never met a queer person right up to their face before. And that's the kind of work, and it is long and it takes time, and we are here for it. We are here for it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story, Mindy. And, and you mentioned that it's not easy to do this type of work. How do you all stay motivated? How do you stay in that mindset of, hey, we're going to go in and battle with the wolves today, but we're going to keep our cool and we're going to, provide a good representation of our community. How do you keep cool and calm and collected and lovable and professional?
You can look to the past for inspiration, and the civil rights movement is what Rosa Parks didn't just hop on the bus one day, sit on the front and refuse to move. She trained herself to do so. And so if you go back and you read about the freedom riders and other civil rights leaders, they actually had like theater classes. And they would role play what to do when someone comes in and gets in your face and yells a racial epithet at you. They role played how to educate their emotions, how to regulate their emotions so they can be responsive and not reactive. And so for us at Equality Utah, we did the exact same thing. So before we went to the Republican state convention, we role played with our staff, and we had people yelling at us. We have a mentor named Irshad Manji who we work with, who wrote a really beautiful book called Don't Label Me. And she came on and she called us groomers and pedophiles and attacked us on all the big issues. And we had to practice, because what happens in a conflict situation is that your defense mechanisms go off and you go into fight or flight mode or freeze, right? And that's what happens when the first time you try this work. You panic and you go, and you don't know how to react. So you train yourself, you practice, how to engage in productive conversations, how to de-escalate conflict, so that your heart rate can be regulated, that your adrenaline can be regulated, so that you can respond thoughtfully and without punching somebody. and so it is a kind of a discipline, but for me, it's also kind of a spiritual practice, because if you do believe in the humanity of all people, and you believe that all people have worth, then that also means the people with whom I have disagreements have worth as well. Can I see that within them? Can I see their stardust reflected back at me? And sometimes people make it hard. I'm not going to say this is easy. Sometimes people are, and I also think a lot about, we use the term hate, I think, so freely. But I don't think hate is what really motivates most people. I think fear is what motivates most people. And then hate becomes a derivative of that. And so if someone is fearful about the world changing, about things they don't understand or have had limited exposure to, maybe then just proximity can help mitigate that fear, reduce it, so that we can actually make a real connection. So providing that grace for people and not shaming and blaming them for not being there yet, is something that's really important to us. Because I've been an advocate in this community for almost 20 years now, And I have seen so many people shift and change and grow toward us so many times. And so when I get into a conflict situation with somebody and they're maybe a little bit adversarial with me, it's possible that 5 years down the road, maybe just 5 months down the road, they will actually join us and actually shift and be willing to consider engaging with us in a different way. And I want to create a space that allows for them to do that.
And what's the alternative? Like for me, I'm the youngest of 7. All of my older 6 siblings, they tease me and call me the family Demorat. And what is the alternative? That I'm angry, that I have hate for them, that I fight them, that I argue with them about politics that really none of us have any from, federal politics, that we really don't, by arguing over chat, we don't really affect change. But what does affect us in our health and our well-being is that anger and that fear inside of us that keeps us fighting. So for me, it's not worth it. What I try to do is just, my son works at a home, and they train them to have a Teflon demeanor. And I love that. Like, I think of a Teflon demeanor just sliding off, and think about when my family says something hurtful, or when I get offended, or that I think of that Teflon demeanor and let it slide and try to engage in a way that brings love, that brings us back together, that makes us more cohesive and less polarized.
Thank you for sharing all of this. And, I feel like this approach to the work that you do is what has allowed you, Equality Utah, to make so many great changes for our state within the state legislative sessions and the work up there. Could you kind of talk about what you're currently working on and some of the most recent wins that you've had, the minds that you have changed?
Yeah, for sure. So notably this year, we codified a ban on LGBT conversion therapy. And, conversion therapy is this discredited, dangerous practice where a therapist tries to alter, modify, reduce someone's same-sex attractions, essentially make a gay person straight and a trans person cisgender. And we know it doesn't work. We know it's dangerous. And we tried to pass a law in 2019, but we couldn't quite get the political alignment on it right in 2019. And so Governor Herbert at the time said, well, let's go to DOPL, which is the Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing, and have those therapists regulate, they'll pass an administrative rule which will regulate conversion therapy and have the efficacy of law, but not enshrined in state code, right? And so we did that in 2020. This year, we went back. There was a lawmaker that was very upset that the way in which we had done that, and had actually introduced a piece of legislation that would have actually essentially codified and actually protected conversion talk therapy, which is the only kind of conversion therapy that's really left. And so we went in not to be combative, but to be curious. And I had Eddie's voice in my ear through all those conversations. Don't be fearful. Don't be suspicious, be curious. So we went in to early negotiations with the legislators, and we listened to them. And we heard some of their concerns, and we saw some things that we hadn't realized. Some therapists didn't know what they could or could not say in a therapeutic setting. And would we be willing to create some guidelines around that so that there wasn't confusion? And we're like, yes, of course. We'd be happy to do that. And so we negotiated and worked. And by the end of that process, we had a robust ban on conversion talk therapy that passed unanimously through the House and unanimously through the Senate, and then was signed by Governor Cox. And that has never happened in the entire history of the country. Even like New York and California that have passed conversion therapy bans, none of them had done it so unanimously, but Utah did it. Now that's not to say that everything's perfect in the Utah is some queer utopia. We still have, like I said earlier, a lot of anxieties around transgender children and a lot of questions and a lot of fears around these issues. But around gay issues, because we've been patient and taken time, lawmakers are starting to come around. Not perfectly at all. There is a major backlash against our community that's being driven right now, and we're dealing with it. But because we are at the table and we've been able to engage people respectfully, we've been able to mitigate a lot of the damage of the backlash legislation that we've seen across the country. And we're still engaging and we're still working, and we're still having hard conversations around difficult issues. And so this work is not done. We have to keep going. And we're fierce and resilient. So
And I love, Troy, I think you said to me one time, resilience is a muscle that we have to build. And I think about, if we don't do these things, if we don't engage respectfully, we are not at the table. We're not in the room. And it's one thing to rage and blow everything up, and that is important sometimes, but really change happens incrementally, and it happens baby steps to greatness. And when we're in the room having these conversations, that's when the magic happens. And that's when we move the needle a little more and a little more. And Troy always says, ooh, we were able to take the teeth out of that bill. And even though it doesn't seem like a big win, at least it didn't, cut us off at the knees. We were able to take the teeth out. And I love that metaphor.
Yeah. So this is it. I mean, this is the what we're really committed to. And I know when I was a young, kind of more rowdy activist, I would lead protests and rallies and marches, and I loved those days. I had such a blast in those days. But I was really intolerant of the word incremental. I hated it. I thought it was like table scraps, and I thought we shouldn't settle for anything but full equality. And I do believe that. But what I recognize is that social change, hearts open incrementally. And, just 10 years ago, we were in this epic battle over marriage equality in our country. And this December, 2023 will be the 10-year anniversary when Utah became the first state to overturn a ban on gay marriage. And the Deseret News and the Hinckley Institute did a poll last November that 72% of the state of Utah now supports the freedom to marry. 72%. But when you think 10 years ago, Utah was at the heart of this culture war battle over marriage. And now, just 10 years, fast forward, 72% of the state of Utah supports marriage equality. That is phenomenal, and it's seismic, and it's rapid considerably. So, so now I look back at the younger activist myself, if I could just have seen 10 years in the future, I would have been shocked and amazed and stunned. And so that's the kind of hope and wisdom that I want to share with the transgender community, because right now we are as locked in a ferocious a battle as we were during the years of Proposition 8 and the marriage battles. And so my hope is that, hopefully not as long as 10 years, but there'll be greater compassion, greater kindness, greater curiosity and empathy, and bravery for the trans community throughout our country.
And this slide here that you've got up, one of the ways that we do this work and really try to open hearts and open minds throughout the state is we have our amazing trainers, Olivia Jaramillo and Stacy Harkey, here on this plakat. They are our trainers, and we go into places of business and we train their employees. We've trained the state court system. We've trained lots of different companies, and through these trainings, we call it a brave space. That this is not just a safe space, this is a brave space where we're going to have difficult conversations, and you're going to be safe to ask the questions you've been dying to ask, and we're going to answer them honestly and thoughtfully. And we've seen a major shift happening, and many more allies grow through having these trainings. I think Olivia told me just yesterday that we've trained over 1,800 people this year. And that kind of reach is really important and really powerful. And that's how we build allyship throughout the state.
And again, it's not with the choir. I mean, like last year we went and off campus, we trained like 90 Brigham Young University professors. Because we, again, we don't want to just like sit and talk to a bunch of liberals. We actually want to be in Utah County. We want to be, in St. George. We want to be in Logan, having these conversations with companies and their workforce.
Yeah.
Incredible. And if people want to talk with you about having you come to train their department or their specific business, how long is the wait list to get into a training program like that?
We have several qualified trainers, and we can work really well with companies. There's not a big wait. We just need to engage. Well, Olivia directs the Business Equality Leader program. You can find out more about it on equalityutah.org. And of course, emailing me or Olivia, we're happy to set something up and talk with people about what we do and what we offer.
You can email training@equalityutah.org right there. So,
right.
We'll get you all the details. So, and again, this is two of our board members, Sid and Sunny, and who work closely in developing these programs with us as well. And like I said, like we have brave conversations. We, safe spaces, it's a very popular phrase that people use, but I don't know if the world's very safe these days. When you've got Proud Boys showing up with guns to our events, it takes people being very courageous and being very brave. And so we don't want to coddle folks. We want to teach resilience and strength because our community needs it. And we are stronger than the obstacles ahead of us. And so, but it does require courage. It requires bravery.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Troy and Mindy. We're going to go ahead and wrap up with this conversation. We did receive some advanced questions from some of our registrants that are here today. So I want to share those questions and just take a moment and have you answer those. I'd also like to just mention for those watching that this exhibition is up for one more day. It's up through tomorrow, which is June 30th, and then it comes down the afternoon of July 1st. So if you have not had a chance yet to go view these in person, they're remarkable to see in person. Again, they're 4 feet by 8 feet. And the design work with all of this is just so beautiful. Every year.
Give a shout out, just a shout out to Carl Lundberg, our graphic designer who creates all of this beauty for us. So thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Carl. You're fantastic to work with.
And there's a little QR code on the bottom right where it kind of talks about the partnership and its exhibition. Can you talk a little bit about where viewers might go with that QR code?
I think it goes to our website. Is that right?
Yes, I think it just goes to the website and kind of talks a little bit about, if people want to find out more information about business classes, business training, or about the Allies Gala. All of that information, or to make a donation. It's really important.
Please, we'll take your money.
The work that you do is not cheap by any means. Great. So right here is kind of a visual of where these placards are located. They're downtown on the 300 South corridor, right by West Temple and Main Street, as well as down through 2nd West. So you can literally just take a stroll on 2 city blocks and see them all. Kind of a good landmarker is thinking about the Rose Wagner Theater, as well as the Squatters Brew Pub. So now let's move to a few of those questions that are from some of the attendees today. The first one is, how can young people become more involved in LGBTQ+ activism and advocacy in Utah?
Oh, great question. Well, I think it's really important that we recognize, there's so many social media platforms now that people are engaging on, and it's really easy to feel like when you are actually, tweeting something or you're making a TikTok that you're actually, shifting policy. And for us, it's great in terms of education sometimes, but really, yelling at someone on Twitter isn't advocacy. Okay. And so we really want to challenge people, to think through that. So what we do at Equality Utah, we have a college ambassador program. Actually, a couple of good things for us to talk about. We have a college ambassador program where we actually hire students on different campuses around the state, and we actually train them how to actually do effective advocacy. And then we bring them up to the Capitol, and we actually take them through the process with us. We actually are also right now have applications open for college scholarships. If you are in school right now, we are giving $2,500 towards tuition for the fall semester. And so you can apply for that at equalityutah.org. There's an application to fill out. And that also gets you mentorship with Equality Utah staff team members. So those are two different college programs that we have: our college ambassador program and our college growth scholarship program. And sometimes there's a little bit of overlap with them as well. But that actually is a way for us to actually help train the next generation of leaders and teach them about how to be advocates up on Capitol Hill. If you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, you'll get action alerts on different information about things that are happening up on Capitol Hill that will impact you and your families. And then we'll get you engaged in writing, texting, emailing, calling your representatives. And then come to the gala on October 14th at the Eccles Theater, and we'll have the announcement for that in mid-July.
And there are lots of ways that you can volunteer, of course, with Equality Utah, especially during the election season. We often need people helping paper for candidates, make calls for candidates. There are so many ways to engage. And I think effective advocacy, like Troy said, it's not effective to rage on Twitter, but what is effective is to show up. When you show up for the suicide prevention walk and you're there, that's effective. When you show up at the Capitol for a rally, that's effective. When you show up and volunteer and you give your hard blood, sweat, and tears for an organization, that's effective. And that's what we want to encourage, because social media can be good and it also can just be polarizing. So let's show up for each other.
What is your favorite thing about doing this work?
That's a beautiful question. My favorite thing is having conversations with people and watching their defense mechanisms drop mid-conversation. And that always happens when they realize that you see them. You know, it's like that whole avatar thing, I see you, right? Like it's real, you know, it's when you are having a conflict with somebody and you actually connect with them and you look into their eyes and they recognize that you take them seriously, then something magical transforms. Something happens and the defense mechanisms drop, and that's when the apologies happen, and that's when people are willing to actually consider a different point of view. And I see it happen all the time, and I love it. I think it's a beautiful thing, and that's what gives me hope for the future of our country. If we can all start doing more of that, we can sort of mend some of these deep divisions in our country and our state.
My favorite thing is just the sense of community. I love our people. I love meeting each other. I love working with our different community partners. I love working with the people who might become our future partners. And all of that connection, that gives me life. And I think humans need connection and we need each other. And the more that we do connect and the more that we're willing to listen, the more connection we have.
All right, we've got time for one more question. Last question, where do you see Equality Utah in 5 years?
Oh my gosh. We just had a meeting. We had a 5-year plan, and then we met our 5-year plan. And now we need to make our next 5-year plan because we achieved all the things. I just want us to be a larger force for good in our state, that we're actually having an impact, getting more pro-equality candidates elected, that we're actually having more influence on the kind of bills that are introduced and passed up on Capitol Hill, and that we can model for our country or for our community effective ways to deal with conflict. And that when people are stuck and don't know how to actually resolve problems, that they come to us for advice. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert at it at all, but that's kind of where I hope that we grow to, that we can be peacemakers in our state.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, Mindy and Troy. It was wonderful to catch up with you and hear about some of the recent work that you've been doing. And of course, always to be reminded to kind of stay in that curious mindset and out of the fear. So thank you again. And we really, really look forward to working with you all again next year and hearing about that incredible announcement you're going to be making soon about who the big guest, the big surprise guest is going to be at the Allies Gala coming up on October 14th. We also want to take a moment to thank our supporters, of course, Equality Utah for their support today, the Center for the Living City, the George S. and Dolores Story Eccles Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Utah Legislature and the Utah Division of Arts and Museums, the Salt Lake City Arts Council, the Zoo Arts and Parks, and the Temporary Museum of Permanent Change. And of course, all of you for being here today. Thank you again. And to find out more information about us, go to craftlakecity.com and of course, equalityutah.org. Thanks again, everyone. Any last comments before we wrap up?
We love you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.